Morning, everybody. My name is Jason, and this is Narcissist Unraveled, coming to you with another video about my experiences with a narcissist. I was married to a covert narcissist for over 20 years. My wife was Chinese, and today, I'm going to be talking about the beginning, how our relationship began. And looking back, some of the number one, how we met, what attracted me to her, and what were some of the warning signs looking back that I didn't notice at the time, and I'm going to summarize basically her scheme of how she came on to me and that kind of thing at the beginning. So how we met in university. Our dormitories were overlooking the same parking lot, so they had the girls' dorm on one side and then the boys' dorm on the other side of the parking lot. And the way we met was I was a member of the International Student Organization, and so I was hanging around with a lot of the foreigners in my university. I knew all of them, and Japanese, Chinese, Germans, people from South America. So when my wife came over to this country, came into my university, of course, I eventually met her. But before I even met her in the organization, the first run-in I had with her or that I can remember, is I used to rollerblade. This is the early 90s, so rollerblading was popular. I used to rollerblade around the parking lot, and I would be by myself rollerblading, jumping curbs or whatever. And I used to do this, quite frequently. And her dorm room overlooked the parking lot, so no doubt, looking back, I'm going to tell you looking back. Let's see. Well, I guess I'll do that separately. But anyway, so I was rollerblading in the parking lot quite often, and no doubt she saw me out there. And she sized me up. She looked at me as a target, because that's what narcissists do. They look at you like a prey. And she saw me as a person who's a loner, that he spends quite a lot of time by himself. And so she saw me as a easy target. And so what happened was, one day I was rollerblading and she came walking out to put trash in the dumpster, and she came out wearing short shorts, very short running shorts, and they were bright red. I remember this like it was yesterday because it was so striking. Bright red short running shorts with a white top, and running shoes, and she just came kind of like bouncing out to the parking lot like a cat, bouncing, and put the garbage in the dumpster, and then just turned around and went right back in the building. And of course I noticed. I was like, wow, look at that girl. And so I thought to myself, wow, I have to find out who that is. And so I did eventually find out who she is, and that I thought that was just a coincidental meeting. I didn't actually talk to her at that time, but I just thought it was a coincidence that she just happened to be putting trash in the dumpster. But in hindsight, of course, this was a setup. She wore bright red shorts, knowing that I would notice her, and so this was completely set up on her behalf. And so eventually we met, and started hanging out together. Now, what attracted me to her was her looks. Obviously, she had nice legs, and she had a nice figure. She was, like a typical Chinese. She had a good, wasn't overweight or anything, and so her looks is what she used to attract me. So she's a what do they call those narcissists that use their bodies? Somatic. So she's a somatic narcissist, which means she's a narcissist that appeals, uh, gets people to appeal to their body, their looks. So her looks attracted me, and also she she was whatever I wanted her to be. So if I said I was interested in this, like say sports, then she would just go along with it. She wouldn't act like, she wouldn't be like over the top where it would be, and she's covert too, by the way. It wouldn't be over the top where you'd be suspicious. She would just go along. Like if you said, oh, I like sports, then she would just go along with sports. You'd say, so I'd say, oh, you want to play tennis, and she'd go, oh, okay, sure. It wasn't like she would, oh, you like tennis too? She wouldn't go over the top. She would just go along. And so I was like, wow, that's cool. And so I took this as being submissive to a man. So that attracted me too, because I was like, this woman just did whatever I wanted to do. And didn't say anything otherwise. Like she didn't say, oh, I'd prefer to do this. Whatever I wanted to do, that's what she did. And so I thought, wow, that's cool. And so that attracted me. Also, she used food. She used to cook for me in her dorm. She'd cook, so I was always hungry, and she'd always cook for me. She'd like, oh, do you want this and do you want that? And I'd be like, oh yeah. So she used food. She was also very mysterious because she never gave any clear signals. Like I didn't know whether she really liked me or didn't like me. She just always seemed mysterious to me. It was kind of like hot, cold, and always kept you guessing. And so that mysterious, that narcissistic grin that always acts like they know something you don't, attracted me also. I took it as she was an older woman. She's 6 years older than me, and I just took it as like that she was more mature, and so that too attracted me. Lastly, she would play the victim even at the early stages. She, what I mean playing victim is she would always, or she, not always, but she would play the damsel in distress. She did that, and on the one hand, it kind of pissed me off because I remember on one occasion where she sat on the ground like we were supposed to be. We were hiking. We were doing some fun activity. We were hiking up a mountain in Stone Mountain, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. But so we should have been having fun, but for some reason, I didn't even know why, she just all of a sudden was sitting on the ground crying. And I was like asking her what's wrong, and she wouldn't tell me what's wrong. And I kept asking her, like, what's wrong? And she wouldn't tell me. Now, in hindsight, I realized that she was faking, that these were alligator tears. It was completely fake. She was acting. There was nothing wrong. She was testing me. This is a way that a narcissist will test you to see whether you are a good supply or not, whether you are going to, how devoted you're going to be to them. Are you going to go along with their act? Are you gonna fall for their act, or are you gonna say grow up? What the fuck's wrong with you? So I, of course, failed. For me, I failed. past.
her?
I was so concerned about her feelings because I'm empathetic. I didn't know what was wrong, and I was genuinely concerned, and so I passed her test. Um, she realized that I would be a good supply for her. And another thing, again, I don't think this is true in hindsight, but I believed it at the time. One of the first things she told me when we started getting close um, was she told me this story about how her parents tried to abort her as a baby, that her parents didn't want her, and so she told me that an abortion wasn't legal back then in her country. So her parents devised, according to her, her parents devised this plan of eating grapefruits, like eat nothing but grapefruits, and the grapefruits, the acid or whatever, will kill the baby. And then, but she managed to survive. She fought against all odds, and she came back. She came out alive, but she was all yellow. Her skin was all yellow, and she was malnourished, and all this stuff. And so, I think this is just all fakery. I think it's all made up, which just goes to show how fanciful their imagination is when it comes to playing the victim. But the way she told the story, it has two purposes. Number one, it makes you feel sorry for her. So again, she's trying to see if you're going to be a good supply. Are you going to believe her lie? Are you going to believe her story? And are you going to feel sorry for her? Are you going to comfort her and all this kind of thing, which of course I did. And number two, it makes her out to be strong, like she survived against all odds, that her parents tried to kill her, but she fought back and she came out alive. So again, it's a typical narcissist scenario where they're superior, that she always presents herself as being very strong, but at the same time being the victim. Again, she told this story early on, and I believed it. I took it hook, line, and sinker, and I felt so sorry for her, and all this kind of thing, and it sounds stupid, but it was really effective. It was very effective as a lure. Um, so. So here are some warning signs in the early relationship that I should have taken note of, but I didn't. Looking back, I can see them now. Over 20 years back. I wish I would have seen these things earlier. But some of the warning signs were that she had no real emotion. It was fake. Looking back, I can clearly see that she was cold. And again, I just took it as being a mature woman. Again, the mystery, not knowing what she's thinking. But I didn't realize that she was genuinely cold, that she was genuinely empty. It's like a soulless person. So that was one warning sign early on, was no emotion. Number two, she isolated me from my friends. My friends, I remember making fun of me because I was always spending time with her. My friends would ask me to go places with them, and then I would decline because I was spending time with Sue. And that my friends were making fun of me because, they could, they were saying I'm pussy whipped, that kind of thing. And I was. Trying to think. Oh, and she never wanted to be around anybody. My wife is also a schizoid, has a schizoid personality disorder, which means that she's an introvert. She doesn't like to be around people. And so she refused to be around my friends. Like, she wouldn't do anything with my friends. So it was so she forced me to make a decision to either be with my friends or to be with her. I couldn't be with her and be with my friends at the same time. And so, of course, I chose her, and found myself very isolated. Okay, and that went on throughout our whole 20-year marriage. She isolated me from people. She made me feel bad for being around other people. Very covertly, by the way. She had no clear commitment. Okay, again, this is another warning sign that I was always kept guessing. I never really knew whether she liked me or she didn't like me. And again, it had the effect of, in other words, she would play hot, cold, hot, cold. One minute you'd think, wow, she likes me, and the next minute the next day I run into her and she's cold. And so she would always keep me guessing, and that should have been a warning sign to me. But again, what I was thinking was, it kept me. It was like a lure. It's like following a lure. You know, if you got the lure, the game would be over. But she always just pulled the lure just ahead of me, to keep me coming. You know, to keep me following her. And so that seems to be her scheme. So there was no clear commitment. Again, mysterious. This, which we would call, I guess, crazy making. Always. I was never, able to understand, her emotions, her emotional state. So that should have been a warning sign. Now, lastly, I'm going to talk about, so what was her scheme in all of this? Like, how did she orchestrate all of this, unbeknownst to me at the time? Okay, well, as I mentioned, she targeted me. She had no doubt seen me skating in the parking lot, and identified me as a potential supply. So she hunted me like a prey. She lied. She made up stories like that abortion story to as a test to see whether I would be a good supply. Would I feel sorry for her? That sort of thing. The crying and seeing if I would believe. Number one, would I believe her lie about the abortion? Would I feel sorry for her? When she cried, would I comfort her? Okay, so that was her scheme there. And using the hot, cold, crazy making, like I said, as a lure, always keeping you guessing. And playing the victim, the damsel in distress. Again, eliciting those, because when a woman cries, any normal guy is going to kind of like that in a way, because we see it as vulnerability, and me being an empathetic person and also possibly a codependent, I'm eager to lend a hand. I'm eager to help someone in need. So that was all part of the lure to get me in the trap. And lastly, she pursued me. She pursued me a lot, leading up to getting married, leading up to moving in together and later getting married. She actually began to pursue me because, I wasn't taking the relationship. Of course, I'm just like any other guy. Looking for any opportunity to get into a woman's pants, that kind of thing. But I didn't really, I wasn't really taking the relationship that seriously. And so it really surprised me when I did kind of like go off and do my own thing. I was surprised for example, I graduated from the university and I went back home, and to my surprise, she was keeping in contact with me. She was calling me, which I didn't, um, which I found flattering, but I didn't. Um, she seemed at that point when I was going away from her, she seemed to take the relationship a lot more seriously than I thought. Because when I was at the university, like I said, she was playing hot and cold. I never really got the idea that she liked me a lot. But when I went away, when I left the university, she continued to pursue me, which surprised me because I didn't think she liked me that much. And then I even went to another country. I went to Venezuela to visit my friend, and and I stayed in Venezuela for like 8 months. I was wanting to stay there permanently. I liked Hispanic women. I was hoping that I would meet one, and maybe, you know, stay in Venezuela for the rest of my life. Um, but she kept calling me from the United States, and when I showed no sign of wanting to come home, she actually booked a plane ticket and came out to visit me in Venezuela, which again I was just really surprised, and again it was very flattering because I was like, wow, she really does like me. And so that's when our relationship got very serious then, because I was like, wow, um, this shows that she really does like me. And so shortly thereafter, after she visited me in Venezuela, I came home. And that's when we started living together and eventually got married. So I'll carry on. So that just tells you how we met. Um, you know, what attracted me to her. Some of the warning signs that I should have noticed, and looking back, what was her scheme in all of this? What was she, and so that's all I'm going to cover for now, and I'll make another video soon. Oh, by the way, check out I made a narcissist music playlist. So if you look up my playlist, check it out, narcissist music playlist, and it has a bunch of songs that have to do with narcissism. I did it kind of to be funny, but it really is eye-opening because these songs they really do capture narcissism really well. So enjoy that, and see you again soon. Bye-bye.